Hi, and thanks for tuning in to this episode of the Climbing Arborist podcast. On this episode of the podcast, I'm joined by arborist Sam Smith, who is an English guy but works out in New Zealand as an arborist. I talked with Sam about how he got into the industry, going to college, landing a job in New Zealand, how he progressed from there to becoming a contract climber. And then we get on to the topic of competitions, which Sam is really enthusiastic about. He loves the competition scene, and is actually pretty well known for last year's result of coming second in the Red Bull branched out tree climbing event, which you may or may not know of, but the Red Bull branched out tree climbing event is something completely different from what you might know as the tree climbing competition in the ISA format. So I talked with Sam a lot about the Red Bull branched out competition and much more. So if you want to follow Sam on Instagram, his handle is at Sam_treesmith. So you'll see a load of good content over there. Otherwise, enjoy the podcast. Thanks for listening. All right, welcome, Sam. Thanks very much for joining me. It's a pleasure to have you on the podcast.
Pleasure to be here.
So I met you, Sam, back in about 5 months ago when I came over to New Zealand for the conference, and yeah, I met you down because you were there for the comp. And,
Yep.
And straight off the bat, I just want to get your take, and because what I got from coming to New Zealand and being around the conference and the comp is like how well organized it was, and how like everybody was there for the conference and everybody was there for the comp. Everybody kind of mingles together, like as part of the NZ Arb conference. Like they had the opening dinner, or the like the welcome drinks or whatever on like the Thursday night, and then when everybody was there for the conference. Like they introduced all the climbers in front of everybody, which like every comp I've been to, that's never been a thing. It's always like the comp has been like completely separate, and maybe they might announce it at some point in the conference, but I thought everybody seems to like get along with everybody else, chat with everybody, and it just seemed really well organized, and everybody just seemed to be having a good time. So
Yeah, it's I think the focus really was trying to get everyone to the comp and the conference, because in the past they've struggled to get like a venue which can host both. So having them both pretty close to one another is always a big key. But no, they did well. I think it's getting more and more involved together. Like you walk around the conference and everyone recognizes you're a climber straight away, and it's not. I kind of feel the guys in the conference quite corporate kind of most of the time, but now it's a good cross of people.
kind of bring it all together.
Yeah.
I was really impressed. It had a really good feel to it, and everybody just seemed to be interested in everybody else, and everybody was getting along. So obviously you're not from New Zealand, but that's where you live. So how did that come about? When did you actually scrap that? We'll start from the beginning.
Okay.
How did you get into arboriculture? And what was the motivating factor, and was it a plan of yours, or did it just kind of happen like it does for most people, just something comes up?
Yeah, it definitely wasn't a plan. I kind of left school thinking I was going to be a graphic designer, and I did a year study of that. Soon to realise that I couldn't be indoors for my whole working career. And then it was my grandmother, out of all people, came home with a newspaper cutting, asking for a couple more students to fill a course. And then I went to Myerscough, studied at Myerscough, got introduced to the tutor. Kind of didn't know it was a thing until I got there, and they showed me around their workshop and showed me the gear and stuff. And then I enrolled, and that was that. It's pretty weird, really. But now,
so you just saw like an article in the paper for some space for a course that you didn't really know anything about, and you like
didn't know it was a thing, like most of the public who freak out by the fact that you're going to climb the tree. But no, I didn't have a clue, and it just sounded perfect. Love the outdoors. Didn't know what I wanted to do, and then it just kind of all fell into place after that.
So was that when you were in like your last year of school? You kind of went
I'd left school, done a year study, realised I wasn't, realised I didn't want to be inside my whole life. So then it came, then came the arborist work, the study and stuff. So I did the 2-year course at my school. And got qualified, did the 2 years, and then ended up out here straight away after that, pretty much.
So after you finished college, you went and just kind of seeked out a job, and who was the first company that you worked for? So
I didn't actually work in England. I did a bit of my own work as I was going through college, to kind of pay off my chainsaw, buy myself a harness and stuff. But yeah, once I got qualified, Asplund were running the Auckland City contract in New Zealand, and they had an old ex-manager come over, Dave Derbyshire, and he did a bit of recruiting for them, and he came in and showed us a slideshow of what New Zealand's got to offer. And that was me. Just signed up on the spot pretty much. And
wow, that's awesome. So you never worked in England as an arborist. You just finished college, and then you're like, oh, this is a wicked opportunity. Off I go, kind of thing. Yeah. Awesome. And then when you got there, being the first company you ever worked for, how did you find? Because to me, coming from like leaving college and then going to work for a small little company quite near where I lived, it wasn't that daunting, because like when you first step out of college into your first job, there's always apprehension, there's the pressure of like you wanting to prove that you are going to work hard and all that kind of stuff. But you traveled to the other side of the world to like, so there's kind of like you're in a country, in a job that you don't know if you're going to like yet. You haven't got any experience, and so was it kind of was it worrying, or
it was just to be honest, I didn't think about it too much. I was pretty young. I'd probably be 18 or just turned 18, but I knew it's what I wanted to do. So that part of it wasn't scary, but yeah, coming to the other side of the world, literally as far away from home as you can get. That wasn't my intention, to get as far away from home, but no, it was meant to be a year trip. I had a return ticket booked, and then it obviously stayed forever, really. But
so how long have you been there now?
I came here at the end of 2012.
All right, so you've been there a good while.
Yeah.
So then going through Asplund as like a newbie and not knowing anything, how long did you work for Asplund for, and did you have some like good mentors to teach you climbing? Because I tell us a bit about Asplund, the office, the company that you worked for, because I suppose a lot of people have certain ideas of what Asplund is because they're like the biggest tree company in the world, and doing one kind of work in one part of the world is probably completely different to what other parts of Asplund do in another part of the world. So I
was blown away going into the office. to do my induction and seeing like 12 trucks and chippers, with 12-inch chippers being the standard, compared to England. Everyone's rolling around with 6-inch chippers. But the sheer size of the operation was just crazy. They had a huge yard, probably I think 30 staff at the time. And yeah, it was a good bunch of lads. I ended up falling into a good crew pretty early on. And yeah, it's just, I don't know, New Zealanders have a good, they're very welcoming. People take you under the ring pretty easily. So I had a good crew. And they just took me on. It was good.
And how long did you work for Aspen for?
I was there for a year and a half, maybe 2 years. Yeah, a year and a half. I ended up just doing it's called reactive work, so it's a big council contract, and members of the public calling in for complaints on council trees. So initially that's what I was doing. So overhanging stuff, stuff near lights, blocking cameras, like weird stuff like that. But then it ended up being parks and reserves. So that's where I jumped. My experience got pretty good then, because every day was in 10-meter plus park trees chasing deadwood, and that was the best move I can think of in my career.
So did you like when you first started working for them? Obviously, you'd been to college, and you get taught how to climb, like the basics, the safe work practices, all that kind of stuff. But you're not in any way, shape, or form like an experienced climber, because you haven't been out in the real world. So, once you started working for Aspen, did you get a chance to start climbing like straight away, or were they very kind of strict on time, and so you didn't really get the chance unless the right job came up, kind of thing?
I don't know if it was the crews I was working with, but time pressure was never really a thing. You had to kind of make billing, which we always did. But yeah, I was very basic. So I learnt Prusik. That was kind of how you went through college. And then towards the end of college, I bought myself a hitch climber system, thinking I was pretty advanced. And then I came to New Zealand, and the rope wrenches had just hit the shelves, I think, here. And then I was just, kind of pushed into SRT straight away, because the trees are so big here, and you're up and down deadwood. So it all developed really quick.
So that's pretty cool. Like you got on to some pretty advanced kind of climbing, fairly early in your career. Like obviously you get taught really basic stuff at college, and but yeah, like if all the guys down in New Zealand were already doing SRT, and then a rope wrench comes out, and it was kind of the perfect time to get into the industry, really.
Yeah, and they just the guys I was with would go out on the weekends playing with new stuff. Just all of a sudden climbing was just every day, every weekend. Just forced myself to get better. Like throw lining wasn't a thing I'd learned at college really. We touched on it, but you can't really chuck your rope over these trees in the parks and stuff over here. They're pretty pretty gnarly, some of them. So yeah, everything was just forced upon me, and I just lapped it up. Good foreman at the time. It was awesome.
Yeah, it's like from my experience, it's so important to if you get on with some guys that are really interested in the work that they do, and they're really, they're kind of keen to go out in their own time and play about and learn new techniques and stuff. Because when I first started doing the job, I kind of had the opposite experience. Like nobody I ever worked with was ever into it for fun. They were just doing it as like a 9-to-5 kind of a job, and like even when I was like 6 months in, I was like the only climber, and the other guys were like young guys out of school just there to be groundsmen. And so like there was never anybody with any experience apart from the guy that I worked with. And so I think it's such a huge benefit if you get on with a crew that, you know, is into it as a job, but also like as a hobby for fun, and, you know, showing each other little tricks, and people trying to come up with new techniques, or, you know, everybody's getting different bits of gear, and you're kind of exposed to a wide range of all that kind of stuff. Whereas if you kind of sheltered from all that, you just know what you got taught at college. And like what I got taught at college, I did for about 5 years. That's all I did. Like I never kind of progressed on the equipment that what I got taught at college with, because I never worked with anybody else to show me any new stuff. And so I would recommend to anybody to, even if they work for a small company, is to like go to the conferences and go to the competitions and just meet some new people, and you know, get some inspiration from other people, like, because it only takes like a couple of conversations with people that are into it for fun and into the gear to actually get inspired and think, oh, this, you know, and then it makes work fun, doesn't it? And
it's a game changer when people are excited to be working and doing stuff. And I think, I don't know, a lot of guys come over from England, and I think a couple of years ago they were still hip thrusting and stuff when they got here, and then you kind of teach them SRT. But I think now with social media, everyone's always flicking through photos of new innovative stuff, so everyone's experimenting. I think anyone who's got an interest in climbing or tree work, they'll explore different stuff quite early on.
They got like
have it as a job, they'll just stay the same, and they'll be hit for stuff.
And it'll feel like a job. It won't feel like, because when I started, I don't know about you, but when I started getting into competitions, it made work way more enjoyable, because it always felt like it's just practice for a competition. And then it never really feels like work unless you're hedge trimming or something. So I think
for me, I've not done too much hedge trimming, but it's just, especially doing the park stuff, you're just doing a work climb every tree. There's maybe 10 bits a day. They're all well maintained trees over here. All they used to be in the parks. So you're not chasing that much deadwood or stuff. So you're just climbing up this whole tree, and then you're down straight into the next one. It's just like production work climbing, I guess.
So you live in Auckland, yeah? Is that right?
Yeah, based in Auckland. Kind of travel a bit around a bit for cool.
And projects. So now you're a contract climber.
Yeah.
And so when did you kind of make the leap from? Did you work for somebody else in between, or did you just leave Asplund and then start contract?
So I did a few stints at different companies. The latest employees Pro Climb with Rossi. You met Rossi. That was awesome. That was another game changer in my career, because Ross is a very knowledgeable guy. He's a really good boss. Good work ethic. But he was kind of contracting me out to other companies. That was kind of his game plan at the time. Did a bit of our own work, touched on training and stuff, and then I kind of got pimped out to different companies. So it's kind of getting my foot in the door with the contracting world, seeing what other crews do without actually making the leap myself. But that was kind of the induction into becoming a contract climber, I guess.
Yeah. So I was speaking with Rossi when I came over to New Zealand for the conference, and it sounds like he runs like a really safety orientated crew. He was telling me like he always makes sure that there's like every single climber has an access rope in case of injuries, and like everybody has a dedicated separate line so that they install that, and which I don't really, I mean, I know that people do that in like maybe in specific situations, specific trees, but he was saying everybody has a dedicated access line, and everybody, if they're climbing, they install the access line as well as their own line, and I thought that's pretty impressive for a company to kind of have that as in their safety policy, you know, for every single job, every day kind of thing.
Yeah, no, it's really good. They have a lot of park work and stuff as well now, so it's, well, when it's practical, if you're just doing residential small work where you're just off the ground, like, we're not going to have an access line. But as soon as we have quite a thorough hazard identification, and if you feel it's going to take over a few minutes to get up to the climber, then that's when the access line comes in. And we just you mainly climb off single line, and you have the access line, and then when you finish, you just make the access line your retrieval line, and it just works really well like that. But it's good having, especially contracting now, there's not always, you kind of worried sometimes, you don't think these boys could be able to
do something.
Yeah.
But,
yeah, Rossi was awesome. You always felt safe. There's never pushing it.
Yeah, so that, like, let's touch on that part of the contract climbing world a little bit then. Like, so I myself did a little bit of contracting, but not for too long, and it was mainly for like friends of mine, so that I'd actually worked with the guys that I contracted for previously, like for other companies and stuff anyway. So, but I imagine as a contractor, they're bringing you in because of your climbing experience, of your skill, hopefully to be able to get done, like a job done on time. And a lot of the time, if companies are bringing in contract climbers, you know, they're bringing you in because they need a job done quickly. So
yeah,
from your experience, do you kind of feel pressured, or do you have like a system in place that the companies that you work for, if you work for them quite regularly, like they know that, right, you're gonna come to site, you're gonna, I don't know, go through like a job assessment, site assessment before you start, or is it as soon as you arrive, like, we want you climbing, we want you going, like, straight away kind of thing?
Yeah, it's a lot of, initially it was kind of the bigger jobs where either their staff and probably not at a stage where they're ready to do these big takedowns or big reductions or whatever. So I got a lot of calls for that. Sometimes it's jobs that staff don't want to do. So for the start, it was big, gnarly stuff, and then stuff no one wanted to do. So it's quite grueling. But there's such a shortage of climbers in Auckland alone at the moment that a lot of the time I'm just filling in numbers. Not really doing a specific job. We might just be jumping in the truck and helping them out as an extra pair of hands, and probably the most experienced guy most of the time. So you kind of leading the crew. But yeah, I work with the same guys regularly now, so we all know what each other's capable of and stuff. And yeah,
So in New Zealand, like, because I got the feeling that contract climbing is quite a big thing in New Zealand. But you're saying they're still struggling for climbers, or that's just like the companies themselves that can't really recruit guys for it to be an employee.
yeah, there's just a lack of employed arborists. There's a few contract climbers, and I know that we're all usually 3 weeks ahead of ourselves, and yeah, it's just mental at the moment. There's no staff. There's a lot of traveling arborists come through during summer, so they stay, and then as soon as it starts raining, they disappear. But naturally, all the companies get busy in summer, so
there's plenty of work to go around.
Yeah, it's not like these guys come and contracting dies down. I think that this will be my first winter where it's meant to get quiet contracting, but we'll see if we get quiet. I don't mind the breaks now and then, so.
But most of the time, you're kind of like you're pretty much full time working, like 5 days a week, or
5 days a week. Yeah, probably should give myself a bit of rest in between. But yeah, it's really interesting learning different crews. I always find myself, I get to like 2 years at a company and then I'd naturally move to something else, or I think my whole life has been 2 years at this, 2 years at that, and then just
2 year blocks, and then you kind of lose interest a little bit.
Yeah.
So do you get how many different companies you work for?
I think I counted it out the other day. I've worked for, I think it's nearly 15 in total, but I'd say 5 of them are the regulars now.
Yeah.
You get the odd calls, people passing your number on.
And do you get the opportunity to work with other like skilled guys that you kind of, can kind of bounce ideas off and stuff like that, or are you usually like the experienced guy and almost like just being an extra employee and actually running the crew for these companies kind of thing?
Yeah. Sometimes I get to work with other guys who I look up to as climbers. Not so much as anymore, but there's the odd job. I'd say once a month I'm kind of with a good crew, and it's usually a big project. Like I've done a couple of days with Dale Thomas and John O. Smith. That was cool. Never worked with them guys, but probably wouldn't have got the opportunity if I wasn't contracting. But yeah, at Asplund it was probably a couple of guys I looked up to who were very good, but you don't get the regular day-to-day. I'm usually the most experienced climber on site most of the time.
Yeah.
So yeah.
What? Yeah. So I don't know if you're big on social media and you follow people like climbers from New Zealand and stuff. I definitely get the impression that there's some pretty cool jobs to be had. I know, like, social media people show the cool shit. Like that's what everybody does. People don't show the bullshit work, but there seems to be some pretty cool jobs going on. Maybe because of the terrain, the type of trees and stuff. But what's kind of do you have like one or two like really standout jobs that like that was the shit?
Recently, Treescapes, and they've now taken over the Auckland City contract. Treescape, and the biggest company in New Zealand. They're in Australia as well now, or have been for years. But they've got a lot of helicopter work, which I think very privileged in New Zealand. There's a lot of it happening. But I got the call to go and help them. I did a couple of days helicopter and some big macrocarpa stems off. I think that was giving the boys a break off the big wood, but that was amazing to be part of that project. There's a good bunch, such a solidly run operation, so that was nice from getting involved with that rather than just tinkering around with residential crews.
Yeah. So when you got the call to help out on that job, what was kind of the first thing that was running through your mind? Obviously, if you doing tree work that involves helicopters is completely different from anything else. Like even different from like crane work, that kind of thing. So do you kind of think of who you know that might have done that work before and ask somebody like, what cuts am I going to use? Like what it's like? Is it high pressure because they're coming in pretty quick? Is it, obviously you've got the downdraft to think of? Like what was your first thought when you
got
the job?
When I did the work with Jono and Dale, that was like pretty much the first invoice I sent for contract climbing. That was another helicopter job. Working for my mate Seb at Custom Trees. So I'd never done helicopter work. So that was, Dale and Jono, very knowledgeable. They taught me a lot. So I wasn't too put off by the fact that there's helicopter work happening. I think the stuff on the mountain that we just did was a bit more straightforward. But we went from a three-man crew, or 3 climbers on the first job, doing tall, skinny pines, to having 8 climbers or something. Doing big wood, so it was a lot slower. The turnaround from the helicopter driving back and forth was probably a minute or 2, if that. But there was 8 climbers, so you wasn't too pressured. There was probably always someone ready to just hook on and do their cut whilst you got prepared. Yeah. But
so what's the process? You have like a huge sling and you have that ready to go, and then you hook it on and rappel down and make you cut, or what? Like,
there's usually very experienced dogmen on the ground, so your only focus is setting the sling, making sure it's going to stay where it is. Like the big wood, you had to notch in and put cuts everywhere for the sling to sit flush. Well, the last thing you want is a piece rolling out of the sling. But yeah, your focus is on setting the sling and doing the cut, and the guys on the ground are talking through the radio basically exactly where to cut, and you're just doing hand gestures. They're talking you through it, and then you pre-cut, so you're not sat with a helicopter above you. You want to minimize that time as much as possible, so pre-cutting like 3/4 of the way through your cut, having the sling slit. A helicopter comes in, you hook it up, and then he takes the weight, and then you just finish your cut, and he's off. And then you're pulling up the next sling, ready for the... Ideally, you'd want to be pre-slinging all the trees, but this was quite a public place, so you couldn't just leave all the slings around. So he was doing it as we was going.
So you're pre-cutting like 3/4 of the way through. So obviously it's not like trapping your saw. And then when the helicopter comes in and you're hooked on, are you then just continuing that cut straight through and making sure that the sling is lifting from the side so it doesn't trap your saw, or are you doing a specific cut?
There's a bit to think about. You learn pretty quick, because if you got one sling, then it's going to lift from the bite, so the log's going to tilt. But yeah, usually 2 cuts, 3/4 of the way through, and then come the other side and just finish it off. And because I was just doing wood, it's usually just sitting on the stump, and then he takes it off. There was guys doing the mother foliage and stuff, I think that's a bit more to think about. Because they were macrocarpers, so it's a big tangly mess for a lot of them. They were
Yeah,
just
big spready.
yeah. So yeah, a lot to think about. You learn pretty quick, and you've got really experienced guys on the ground.
So what was the reason, or what are the reasons that for the helicopter jobs you've done? Like, why are you using helicopters?
The first one was just really remote. It was kind of a stand of pine trees that a few of them had become, I don't know, had like dislodged from the stand, so they were leaning in over this dam, which is a main water supply for so much of Auckland. So if one of these trees fell over and damaged the dam, then that would be quite a major. So it was just cheaper, I suppose, rather than setting up a crazy rigging operation just to fly them out and down the gully and have a landing zone and process them down there. But the second job is quite a complicated one. So there's EV groups, the Maori, the people have kind of been given back some land over the years, and there's a lot of volcanic mountains in Auckland, and over the years they've been planted out with basically non-native trees, and they're reverting it back to native bush, hopefully. So there's a lot of trees coming out, and they're doing a replanting throughout these whole mountains. But with it being sacred land, it's minimal impact. So I've worked on there before, doing rigging, like you're rigging. Well, the contract was dead or dying trees, so that was minimal impact rigging. So you couldn't really get a track chipper to it. We did flying foxes down or speed lines to other trees to where you could get a vehicle and then we'd trailer it off. But because these are such massive removals, they're just flying it, helicoptering all of it off. It's pretty insane. Costs a lot of money, I guess, to do it, but
yeah, it must be. Obviously, do you know how much it costs for the helicopter stuff? Because I don't. To be honest, yeah, I don't know any. I don't know of anybody else that's done any helicopter work apart from in New Zealand. Like, I'm sure people have done it, but it seems like it's not uncommon in New Zealand, whereas everywhere else it doesn't seem like a thing at all.
I think it's just so remote. They're getting cranes, like huge cranes, to most of these trees, but the ones that are on the peak and stuff of these, they're basically hills, but we call them mountains. Even if you was to rig it down and stuff, you couldn't. There's no way of getting it off because there's only a walking track up there. The terrain's pretty rough on some of them, so helicoptering.
Yeah, it seems pretty extravagant, but if that's the easiest way to do it, then that's the easiest way to do it.
It's definitely nice seeing like 700, 800 kgs of wood just flying away and being dropped in a car park down the road.
What's it like with the downdraft when it's above you? Is it like pretty strong? And as it's hovering?
Directly under, it's not too bad. It's when the guy in the tree next to you, it's not that bad. Up on the pine trees I did with Seb, they were tall and skinny, so yeah, as it came over there was a bit of swaying. But I know some of the guys' stories who've done like super tall skinny pines, they've like had ropes in different trees and they're getting slack for like a good amount of time, and then the helicopter flies away and the trees are just swaying all over, so it's not too bad. I think if you're on the ground, you're getting a lot of dust and stuff if it's dry. And the stuff I was on was the stems, so it's obviously not as thick.
Yeah, it's solid. Yeah.
And when you get into the real big gnarly bottom, you're only a few meters off the ground, really. Just dicing up cubes and stuff to fly away. But yeah, up the tree, it's more when you're in the tops, setting the slings.
Yeah.
If you're getting the slings dropped off, it's quite a mission to pull them up the tree. So in one of the jobs, we just had the helicopter dropping them in the tree to you. That's quite hard because the slings are blowing everywhere. They're getting caught on all the branches. You're fighting the downdraft of the slings, so they're quite heavy as well, but them being pushed down by the wind as well and stuff. It's pretty intense. Or with a big chainsaw hanging off your harness and the guys on the radio telling they're coming to you next. You better have a cut ready. You can get flustered quite easily. But,
yeah, I bet. It's a bit like a Formula 1 pit stop, I would imagine.
Yeah, it's very chill until it happens, and then if the other boys are changing tree and they're on the way up, then they kind of focus on you, so you've got to pick it up and do a few cuts before it's back on someone else. And yeah.
So since you've been working in New Zealand and throughout your career, do you have any standout kind of moments that people listening to this might be able to learn from, that is something scary that's happened either to you or somebody you've been working with, on the crew, or have you had a near miss, that kind of stuff?
There's been a few weird things, more laughable. I had a cut on my arm once. That was chainsaw was on my harness, and there was a branch hanging on a roof, and so the weight of the branch was already on the roof, so I'd cut it and pulled it off, and totally misjudged how heavy it was when it slid off the roof, and it dragged my arm past the chain. I don't even think it was against the teeth, so it wasn't even the sharp edge cutting me, but that sliced me open. But no majors. I think the machinery. I think if you're pretty focused, you're not hungover or anything. You've got a clear head. You're very safety orientated. I've worked with some guys who one hand when it's chogging down and they're pushing over it and stuff, and I think when you start doing stuff like that, you're asking for trouble. But personally, I've not really had any majors. Touch wood, I don't as well.
Touch wood. Yeah. No, that's good to hear, because like you said there, if you're not hungover and you're safety conscious, but that's kind of not the norm for, I'd say, the majority of people. Even if you're not hungover, if you've got a certain amount of experience, I find that a lot of people become really complacent. It even happened to me after about 5-6 years. You just feel so comfortable in what you're doing, you almost not stop paying attention, but you just think, I'm just going through the motions. I've done this every day for the last few years, and unless you really make an effort to think about safety and think about the job for the day and talk to the guys every morning about what you're going to do and stuff, I think it's easy to just think, I can do this. I did the same yesterday, and get complacent, kind of thing. Yeah,
I've worked with a few guys who've had branches snap in New Zealand. It's not common, but I think you've got to be aware. It's usually the English boys coming over, or European, because you've got oaks that grow here that if you're fresh from Europe, you'd think it's 150-year-old tree, but they grow so quick over here. It's probably a 20-30-year-old tree. So the wood structure is just so weak.
Yeah.
And what you'd anchor into is, I don't know. It's good to have a Kiwi to double check. Poplars, they're renowned for it, but I've seen a big head snap out of a poplar with my mate ascending up.
No way.
And yeah, that was kind of 25 centimeters.
Something that he was roped into, or
yeah. So he was. I can't remember if he was base tied. But yeah, he just heard the crack and he didn't come out of the tree, but because the head got caught up again, it wasn't too. He was fine, but it was a big head considering what it was. So that kind of stuff, stuff out of the ordinary, I think you got to think about more than, for me anyway, for me doing stupid stuff. I think it's more your surroundings.
And I suppose going back to you contracting, say if you contract for a new company or a company that you don't work with too often, it's also working with guys that you're not sure of their abilities, and then they say they can do one thing and maybe you don't realize that they can't until you're a couple of hours into the job, and then you're like, oh, this guy is like maybe not putting you in danger if you're up a tree, but maybe putting other guys on the crew in danger, or that kind of stuff.
Yeah. They're all pretty good, and you can usually tell by, I don't know, it's quite judgy, but if someone's got say, I don't know, this is quite judgy, but if they're wearing chaps and just steel toe caps as opposed to chainsaw pants and chainsaw boots, you kind of just pick up that they're labourer type groundy rather than someone who's interested. So if I get that vibe from a crew that I've not worked with, I'll spend more time giving the lowdown on how you want it to run and stuff. But yeah, you just get the warning signs pretty early on. You always have a brief. I try to have a brief at the start of each job and make it safe for everyone. But recently I've had a couple of climbers be my groundies, and that's so nice having someone who thinks on the same level as you.
Yeah.
Just shouting down, telling them this needs one wrap or stuff like that. Like they hear your chainsaw run out of fuel and they get the fuel can ready.
Yeah, always working with guys that can climb is just like such a it just makes everything so much more relaxed, and yeah, like you say, they're kind of almost like one step ahead of you, so when you need a rigging gear, they already know you need it and it's ready to go, rather than you having to shout down and wait 5 minutes and stuff like that. Yeah.
They're putting wraps on when you've got the rigging rope tied to your harness still, and and you're locked up and you can't move. Yeah. I experienced a lot of that, but regular guys, you get around it.
Yeah. So let's go onto a topic that I know that you're most passionate about, and you're probably itching to talk about, because I know you're big into competitions. So when did you start competing in New Zealand? The story that I like to tell is when I knew I was coming to New Zealand. I had my flight booked and stuff like that. I was watching a lot of videos of New Zealand tree climbers. So there was like Chrissy Spence, who's like winning the worlds and stuff, and Scott Forrest, Jimmy. It was just, I don't know, that was like my big inspiration to get into it. And noticing
the support from the crowd all the time. One voice always stood out in the crowd, and the whole New Zealand community will know that voice. But I got to my first comp after, I think I was here for 2 years, or a year and a half, and I did the Auckland comp. I was about to go up to the work climb, and this guy came up to me, talking about SRT, because I was doing it on the rope bench. And I instantly recognised the voice and put it all together. It was Zane. And that was like, I don't know, a weird moment. Watching all his videos, never really knowing who he was. I just heard his voice cheering on all the time. And then 2 minutes later, he's yelling at you, telling you to go harder and stuff. That was awesome. So that whole community thing with New Zealand is just awesome. There used to be Nikki Ward Allen used to do the Taranaki Open. Have you ever been to the Taranaki Open?
No.
Actually, that was my first comp. It's an unofficial comp, but that was just a big stepping stone for a lot of people, get them into the vibe without the pressure of being judged and stuff like that. But yeah, I love it. The learning opportunities that come alongside with climbing competitions is just awesome. And that's where you get to look up to people. If you're not getting it at work, there's always someone who's going to beat you in something at the competitions, or there's always a better climber. So every time you go, even as a spectator, you can just pick up so much information and new techniques and stuff. I think every climber should at least go and spectate if they're not wanting to compete.
Yeah, definitely agree with that, because I'm the same as you. I find every competition I go to, like, no matter what the competition, like if it's ISA competition, if it's like a little grassroots competition, like somebody will always give you like a real nugget of wisdom that you've kind of never heard before or never thought about, or like you see somebody doing something and you're like, oh shit, that looks pretty good. Like maybe it's a specific situation or whatever, and I'm sure it's the same the world over. Like where there's a competition, that like there's a good community of arborists, obviously. Like but like when I came down to New Zealand, it just seemed like it was like so tight. Everybody was like, it seemed like everybody was pretty competitive, but at the same time everybody's still relaxed and helping each other, and like they want everybody else to do well as much as you want to win it for yourself, kind of thing. And
there was the Asia Pacifics that just happened last week, on the weekend, and I learned from that. Jeremy Miller, he's probably the most chilled, humble guy out there, but he's doing really well at the comps at the moment, and I just thought, he's not feeling the pressure. That's his secret. But I stayed with him, and then I go in the garage at night, and he's got his rope over the garage door, and he's rescuing the lawnmower off the ground, just running it over in his head. And so, everyone's really competitive in that way, that they've got their own thing going on, and everyone's in the little groups practicing. But on the day, there's nothing but encouragement for each other. Obviously you want to win or do well, but you're competing against yourself rather than, you're never hoping for someone to muck up, or you're always getting cheered on, which is awesome.
It's funny you say that about Jeremy. Like you saw him kind of running through stuff like the night before or whatever, because it's like I find this so funny about guys that compete. Like a lot of people will deny that they practice for competitions, and you know full well if they're of a certain standard, they're practicing. Yeah, because like something like doing aerial rescue, you're never gonna get through well, I won't say perfect, but like a decent aerial rescue if you don't practice it, because you gotta vocalize that over and over again to know what you're gonna say while you dealing with like the situation that you've only just been told that morning, like the tree that you've only just seen. Yeah. So I find it so funny that people be like, oh no, I don't practice, and then like win the thing, and I'm like, yeah, bullshit. Of course you practice.
You practice in the shed rescuing the lawnmower.
Yeah.
But yeah,
it's a weird one, because it, like, I don't know if it if people just don't want to admit that they're going out there and practicing. Like, if somebody, like, everybody where I live, like everybody in the chapter that we are, or well, at least in the city that I live, I'd be like, oh, I'm going out and doing some training if you want to come join me, or like a month before or a few weeks before or whatever. No secrets. No secrets there. And I find it funny. Like,
there's a few guys who I'd say there's about 10 of us that kind of started comps at the same time, and our level has come up together, and it's like now we're pushing in the top 10 regularly and stuff. So that gets a bit competitive, where like one of the boys, I just thought we was on the same level all the time, and then he comes and stands next to me when they're reading out results, and he's like, oh, you beat me by such and such, and you have done for the last 3 comps. And like, you've got to be competitive to push yourself. But having the crew, we've got, well, coming up to your chapter anyway, we step it up. Auckland's pretty tight now at the moment, so there's probably 5 of us that'll go out on the weekends before the comp, and usually it shows off. I focused on the aerial rescue last time. I've never really smashed an aerial rescue, but like you said, you've got to learn that script and the points. So that's what I focused on. And then I think I came second behind Jeremy. But Sam Turner, he's focusing on the ascent. He's out training a lot, and he's like doing really well at that. So it goes to show, if you want to do something good, you got to practice.
Yeah, you got to practice at it. You're not just gonna be good because you're ascending trees at work, or if you want to be good at something, you got to practice. And like you say, you've got like 10 of you all pushing each other, so it just means that you're gonna keep pushing, and somebody's gonna get better, and then everybody else is gonna get to their level and keep pushing. And that's the best environment to be in for competitions. But then that kind of comes back into your everyday work as well, because you're going to be better, smoother, more efficient, using new techniques. And I'm
changing my technique to suit the comp that's coming up next a lot of the time. So when it's the ISA type comps, I'm back to hitches and rope wrench, and then hopefully I qualify at Auckland. So as soon as Auckland's done, I'm back onto the runner in preparation for the Red Bull, hopefully. So yeah, my techniques are always changing, and you end up with an array of tools and stuff that you can always use to suit any tree. I think comps are the best for making you prepared for anything, really, especially with work.
Yeah, I thought it was really cool that because of the chapter that I'm in the States or in North America, you just sign up for the chapter competition, and whoever signs up, the first 30 people to sign up enter. Whereas when I came down for the Enter Arb conference and the competition was on at the same time, like everybody who was competing had to have qualified for the competition. So everybody there, like, I suppose this is why I noticed that because I noticed when I got there in the morning, everybody's got their gear set out. Everybody's like practicing their ascent changeovers, or like got the throw line out, like practicing throw line. And to me that was crazy, because I've never seen that at the competitions I've been to, because the odd guy will have the throw line out and just going through their gear and stuff, but because at our chapter there's maybe like 5 or 6 really, really good guys that on their day any of them are going to win it, or get in the Masters, and then there's like the next tier down, there's probably another like 6-7 that on their day might get into the Masters, but you don't see the whole field practicing or like running through their systems before the prelims. And I was like, man, this is something else. But that obviously comes from everybody having to qualify to be there, so everybody's like probably like top 5 in their region in New Zealand kind of thing.
There would have been 4 region top 5, so 20 qualified climbers. I think you get previous qualifications from qualifications. If you qualify for the nationals, you've either won or you've placed top 5, or you've been in the Masters of the nationals the prior year, I think. So it's all the big names, big competition.
And you touched on the Red Bull competition. So for people that don't know, the Red Bull started doing a tree climbing competition in Australia called Branched Out, and obviously they just completely wrote their own rule book and their own they just made it visually entertaining, and it's it looks like it's just all kind of big swings and fast climbing. So tell us a bit about the Red Bull, because obviously I've just seen clips online that they're posting and stuff. But
hopefully can come down next year.
Maybe depends when they release the date and what date it is, but I'd love to come down.
They're definitely trying to keep it it's not exclusive, but it's definitely for the cameras, and they released the date quite late to keep it exciting and stuff. That's definitely the appeal. It's got having the Red Bull brand stamped on it is quite a thing in itself. But it's basically a work climb with no lanyard and no silky, and you just got to hit bells with your hand as fast as you can. And being Australia, it's nice, big, open eucalyptus trees. So anyone can walk up to it, and you see a timer ticking down, and you see a climber racing around a tree. And as soon as you hit the target on the ground, that's your time. So it's really audience friendly, and just wicked.
So
I really enjoy.
So is there any rules to it, or it's just you'll
get called? You can't just run around with like slack and stuff. They'll still. I think the only rule or anything I saw was them stopping where you are to sort your slack out, and then you carry on. So that you're getting penalised by stopping, so your time's still going, obviously. But just run fast, and they usually have quite a glorious landing from a branch or a big push out from the main stem, and the target's quite far away, and a big pile of mulch for a softer landing. But
Yeah, I've seen a bunch of pictures of people landing, and it's just like
Carnage.
it's not like ISA comp where you have to land on your feet. It's like you just got to hit the ground, and that's you done kind of thing.
Yeah, so there's people running around just kicking the bells, just tapping them with whatever part of the body as long as they ring the bell. But yeah, the landing, you can just come straight down to the ground and run to the landing, which was suitable for one of the trees. But yeah, it's very entertaining, very fast, cameras everywhere, so every swing's like good swing. Yeah, I did a bit of training for that, and you definitely have to change. You don't have to be as finessed. You're not going to get any discretionary points for looking good. You just got to be pretty quick. It's definitely affected my ISA type climbing comps. I'm a bit more rough now.
So it's changed it for the worse for the ISA comps.
Yeah, I think so. But it's awesome. I don't think it's going to take over because the ISA comps are so established and stuff, but I think they're going to go with these freestyle comps. It's definitely going down the like extreme sport kind of speed climbing stuff. Like, I think that's what's going to end up from it. Hopefully, that'd be cool. Like the speed rock climbers who are just running up them. Have you seen them? The walls.
Yeah.
It's going to end up like that. Hopefully, I think that's the game plan.
Yeah, because it's just purely time. There's no point scoring, no nothing. It's just like time starts and
the structure is there's a qualifying tree. So the last one, there was 100 climbers. They actually had 2 qualifying trees, but you qualify in one tree in the top half of the table. In speed, the fastest, they then qualify for the quarterfinals, and that's a bigger tree usually with 3 targets, and then they keep knocking the table in half until it gets down to the 4 climbers in the final, and it's the same tree you end up running, but they just add a station at each round. So it gets better and better for the climbers and for the audience because the climbers know the tree.
Yeah, because you kind of get used to it and you get used to the swings you can make and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it's cool.
So if there's 100 climbers, obviously there's just like the one event, and then like you were saying, it gets halved and halved and halved. Like, how is it? Just over a weekend, or and?
Yeah, they did. I'm trying to think how they ran it. First day was qualifying, and they do a head-to-head SRT race, which is not like the open ascent. They've just got, and it's a hole. It's like 30 meters, 2 lines, and you head-to-head. They usually do it at night, so there's all lights and stuff. It's really, again, camera focused, but it's really entertaining. And you just go head-to-head against someone. You set up whatever system, you're belayed and stuff, so you can go on cams and stuff. You don't have to come down or anything. But that's really fun. You boost up, and that's actually run as a separate competition, but they fill one night in with that, and then the second day starts with a quarterfinal at the top of the table. So if you're lucky enough to make your way through, you're climbing a qualifying tree, then you're doing a 30-meter race head to head, and then the next day potentially 3 more big climbs. So it's like an endurance run as well.
Yeah. So when you did it this year just gone, obviously there's it's pretty prestigious if you can win the event, and there's some big like prize money to win. So
Yeah.
did that change the way that you felt about it, competing? Were you like pretty nervous, thinking, man, I really want to do well at this, and then so you're putting pressure on yourself, or did you just try and keep it relaxed and be like, there's 100 climbers, I'm just got to do my best and see where I'm at? Or like,
There's so the year prior to, so 2 years ago, I think I was a few seconds off making the final or something like that. And I just really wanted to climb the final because it was such a cool tree. The competition was real tight. So I recorded that on a GoPro. So when I came back, I watched that over and over, and I picked up what I did, or not what I did wrong, but where I could pick up time. And then I trained a lot. I took a week off work prior to it and focused on all these big swings, a bit of fitness. I was running up and down the stairs at the apartment in the evenings.
don't give away all your secrets, mate.
Yeah. Fitness is the biggest one. Ryan, who won this year, was very fit. He does a lot of, I think he does triathlons and stuff. So he just amazing climber, but he was also very fit. So he was just getting faster and faster throughout the day, where everyone else was kind of slowing down and stuff. But yeah, I just focused on what I needed to get better at and did it. And then it was quite fortunate the way it ended up, because as they had the stations into the tree, so I'd had a route. I think there was only 2 of us that did the route I did on the round 1 of qualifying, and then they added the other station, and it just so happened to be I just added it onto my previous run. So I did the same run around the tree and then added the station they added as the 4th station, and then did the descent. And then I made it to the final, and it worked out that I just added it on again. So I had this tight run kind of rehearsed like 3 times, and then I'd just add another station to the end. The other guys, it didn't suit the runs they'd been doing, so they were kind of switching around the tree a bit more.
Oh, so it wasn't like they didn't make it really obvious so that everybody would do the same route. Everybody was kind of pick and choosing like really different stuff. Yeah.
It was really cool to watch the different. So there was one really high up next to your anchor point, and then the next couple were at the same height, so you could go either way around this stem, and then yeah, they were all kind of halfway through the tree, so you didn't really swing naturally into another one. There was lots of options, so everyone was doing different stuff and having to change the route and stuff like that. But it was awesome.
That's pretty cool. That the route could have been done so many different ways, because it's like when you first start, you're like, is this going to be the best way? And everybody obviously thinks their way is the quickest, because that's why they're deciding to do it and stuff. But
the qualifying tree was a lot more that way. They were quite tiered, so you'd go from one to another.
Yeah.
And everyone did the same route pretty much. I don't think anyone did anything different. But yeah, the big kind of final tree was any man's game, really. There was different routes available.
And what were the times like separating people? Is it like literally like a second, like half a second, or is it like 10 seconds?
I'm just focused on the final scores, because that's what I'm always like. So Ryan won and I came second, and then Craig Wilson came third, and there was 7 seconds between me and Ryan, and then 3 seconds between me and Craig, and then the 4th, I think he missed a swing or something, so his run was pretty unlucky. But it was any man's game because the guy who came fourth had won each round up until the final.
All right.
And he'd smashed it. And he was on a lockjack, which everyone was kind of just blown away by how good he was on this lockjack. There was a rope wrench, a lockjack, zigzag, and a rope runner in the final. So it was totally...
Everybody using different stuff, yeah.
So for the climbers as well, it was awesome to watch because there's just people doing mad stuff that, yeah. I think he was called Kev, the guy who came fourth, but he was really skilled climber with the lockjack.
Yeah.
He had big gloves on to stop his hands getting burnt. And he just ran around and, yeah. It's next level. It's definitely different to the ISA. Like you watch Jimmy and Scotty just float around the tree, but this was a lot of scrambling, a lot of big swings, like heavy descents. You'd get a smell of Prusik every 5 minutes from people bombing out in the tree next door. But it was awesome.
And did you find that, like, so you said that each climb that you did, like the bell or station that they added was, it kind of just suited the route that you did. So did you find, like, each time as you were like approaching it, because you were doing the exact same route and you knew the branches, were you pushing it a little more because you thought from experience, like, I could actually make this swing, or I can do a bigger swing, or I can run the branch quicker, or were you just kind of still wanting to play it a little safe and not go too crazy?
I was playing it safe up until the last round. Like, not too safe. I was running, but yeah, I got more confident. I love big swings, like we set up swings and climbing big trees, so there was no fear, like knowing I'm not getting judged and stuff. I think I know I can run around a tree, so that was what I was focusing on. And then yeah, it was quite nervous being in the final, but I was more excited. That's the big difference for me with the Red Bull freestyle type comps. I'm more excited now.
Do you think it gives you more confidence for this year because you know how close you were, or do you think it'll just be the same?
I don't know. I feel like that was probably the best I'll do, because there was a lot of guys who everyone's looking at. Like watching the climbers throughout the day, you can kind of pick the top 10, and it's like any man's game. And in the semi-final, a few people missed a big swing and stuff. So you just, once you miss this swing, you're stuck in mid-air. So it eliminated quite a few big names, and then you just, that was kind of interesting. There was a bit of luck. The fact that the way I did it, it ran, and I just added the station on. Some guys have an unfortunate missing the swing was probably part of it as well.
Yeah. And with there being 100 climbers, was it 100 like top quality climbers, or were some people like fairly new to comps in general, fairly new to climbing, and were there people from like different countries, or was it mainly like Aussies and Kiwis?
The first year, the guy came second, was his first comp. Just naturally good at climbing fast around a tree. Apparently he did a comp afterwards, an ISA one, and didn't do too well, because he's new to the comps. But there's the second time, there's a few more international people. A lot of them were travelling in New Zealand or Australia, so you just had the different nationalities from that. But Meckles came from America. There's the Kiwis that went over. Drew came from Fiji. But I think they sold the last ticket the night before.
Oh, really?
So it was like, it wasn't a sellout event straight away. But I definitely think they recorded a lot of footage and they haven't released it. So I think coming up to this one that's coming, it's going to be a bigger push to sell out. I know the first year you had to send in like a resume and a description who you was and what you do. I think that was, they were hoping it was going to sell out, and then they'd pick the top climbers. Do you know what I mean? To kind of make it a showcase, but then they just sold 100 tickets the second year. So, but there was bucket operators who don't really do competitions climbing. A lot of new guys, just because of the thrill of it, they feel like it was a one-off opportunity, so they just got involved. So yeah, a mixed range of climbers. I wouldn't say it was the best 100 climbers in the world, but I think that's what they're going to try and push for.
Yeah. Once it's been running for a few years, it'll become this competition that's, well, obviously with guys that do competitions, it's probably it's so well known already, and I imagine it'll get to that state where it is like everybody's kind of trying to get on board like straight away because they know it's going to sell out. So I imagine it'll get that snowball effect behind it and pick it up.
Yeah. I hope it does, because they've put an initiative in. If whoever buys the first ticket goes last, and then whoever buys the second goes second to last. So they're trying to make you buy the tickets quick, so then time around you at the end of the day, so you get to watch everyone and stuff. So there's stuff like that, and they kind of keep that through the rounds. If you're at the top 10, whoever's the fastest goes 10th in the next round, kind of. Yeah. They just keep reversing the table.
And so after this comp, you obviously were pretty impressed by it. That I know that you went up and kind of did a similar thing at Taranaki comp, didn't you?
Yeah. So the Taranaki Open was run by Mickey, Ward, Allen, and a partner Neil. They've been doing that since before I came to New Zealand, and it was kind of every year. And they did it with a film festival and stuff, which was really cool. So people, I think you may have even sent some videos in back in the day, but it was such an awesome event, and then it kind of became less regular. I think they did it every couple of years, and then they kind of said they were going to stop, and then they did this one-off, and I just put my hand up to run a freestyle event, because a lot of the Kiwi guys wanted to go to Aussie, but it's not everyone could have gone to it. I know there's been a couple of freestyle comps now. Zane did one in Auckland, and then I did the Taranaki one. I just think it's fun. I love setting it up. It's just really exciting. Even setting it up and running it was awesome. Me and Jess, my partner, she set up like a scoring system. So you've got a screen and you're watching yourself throughout the day move up and down the table. So it's keeping the climbers engaged. Everyone's gathered around the screen watching where they've been placed after the last climb has gone and stuff.
Yeah, nice.
It was awesome.
I find that one of the early comps that I went to, the ISA comp, they had like a board at each event, and I actually thought that was pretty cool, because it did kind of keep you interested, and it kept you going back to the event and seeing who's winning what, and I know that they kind of want to keep it a surprise, so when they release the results, but I kind of did feel that it kept people a little more engaged to see who's, especially like on the speed events, like the ascent event and stuff,
because they're really like exciting, and I think having a board showing where you placed, or it's beneficial. It's good. It's good for the crowd as well. I think you gotta get the crowd involved.
Definitely, yeah, and it's those kind of events where the crowd want to watch, like the speed events where, you know, they're not having to know all this kind of all the techniques and the technical stuff. They just see who can do it the quickest. So it's more spectator friendly. So, yeah. So how soon will you start practicing for it? If you know, will you start like a month out or?
Well, what I picked up last year was, if I have a bit more fitness, I'll probably be able to do better runs. So every weekend I'm like, I'll start my fitness plan, but obviously that just keeps rolling on and I never do it. But the plan is to start as soon as possible. We're going into winter now, so I don't know, you get less daylight, it's getting pretty crappy weather, so training does slow down. But I'll start fitness as soon as I can. The Auckland comp will happen before that, so I'll be not using the rope runner. I'll be using zigzag or the wrench at work up until then, just so I'm dialed back in with that. And then as soon as that's done, I'll jump on the runner and get used to that again, because I find the runner is the best tool for me for running around a tree, and that'd be my go-to device. So
I'll ask you this, and then I'll let you get on with your Saturday. So talking about gear, what gear kind of at the moment like really stands out for you, or just like what's your favorite? It can be anything, like climbing gear, hardware, chainsaw, something that I don't know, that's like your favorite of right now. What?
I was very much anti-mechanical for a good few years. I always liked hitches, like a well-tied hitch. I thought that was the way, and then I got the rope runner, and I think that for me that's the best tool. I'm just so comfortable with it. You have to put a bit of time into it, but for me, I'd say I'm dominantly an SRT climber, so the rope runner is my go-to. Playing with the zigzag a bit more for the comps, but definitely comfortable on the rope runner.
And what rope do you use it with? Do you switch it up, or do you mainly use the same
I was on Cougar, or the Cougar series by Donaghy's for as long as I can remember. Cougar Orange was I had 2 ropes, 2 reels of that. But then Tuffelberger sponsored the Red Bull, and I won some aesthetic, so I'm finding that really nice with mechanical, like the akimbo. It works really well. But mainly the rope runner and aesthetic. I don't think you can beat it.
Nice. All right, mate. We'll leave it there.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, cheers for joining us. That was wicked. And really good to hear about the Red Bull event, and because obviously it's down in Australia, so not many. Well, the majority of people will have heard about it, but don't really get to know the vibe of what it is. So that's cool to hear about that kind of event. And I wonder if more people will kind of set up these little grassroots competitions and do something like that, or
I think we're gonna me and Jess are going to start planning one again. I know Tree Tools have bought. Tree Tools, our shop in New Zealand, have invested in something that's pretty cool for these comps. So we're going to get our heads together and start planning for one next summer. Don't know how we're going to run it, but you'll get the invite.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
One last question. This is it, final question. Why do you think, being in New Zealand, that the caliber of climbers is so high that comes out of New Zealand? Because especially competition climbers, obviously you had Scott winning the ITCC a few years running. Now you've got Jimmy winning it a few years running. Nikki was like crushing it. Chrissy, like it just seems like they've been dominating for quite a long time.
I don't know. I think it's possibly just the nature of New Zealand and the trees. Like everything's a lot bigger here. Most of the trees are wider than they are tall. The broadleafs. So your everyday climbing skills are pushed just naturally, I think. I think that would be a big factor. Very disciplined. I know there's been a lot of hours and competitions done by them guys to keep pushing themselves and wanting that number one spot. So yeah, a combination of environment and determination, I reckon. They've always got there's always groups of people out climbing together. But yeah, them four names have just dominated for a long time. I don't know, just think they're naturally good.
Yeah.
Hopefully. Picking up plenty of tips along the way, but hopefully get there one day.
Yeah, well, the more time you spend around them, the more it'll kind of rub off, won't it? And
for sure.
It's I found it fascinating how they've been pretty dominant for the last few years. So, and to come from one small little island.
It's bizarre.
Yeah, pretty good. Right? Yeah. Cheers, Sam. I'll let you go, and cheers for joining me, man. Much appreciated.
Pleasure.
Awesome, man.
Awesome. Hope to hear from you soon, man.
Yeah, I'll see you down for the Red Bull, hopefully.
Yeah. I'll send you an invite for our comp as well.
Nice. Cheers, man.
All right. Cheers.
See you.